Good afternoon, and welcome to the Editor's Podcast for the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. I am Dr. Linda Snetzler, Editor-in-Chief of the journal. With me, I have Dr. Ana Poblacion, who is a research scientist and director of multi-site operations at Children's Health Watch at Boston Medical Center. And she has written a monograph titled Food Insecurity and Weight Faltering, U.S. Multi-Site Analysis of Young Children's Weight Trajectory. Welcome, Ana.
Thank you, Linda, for the invite. I'm very happy to be here with you talking about this work.
My first question is, please, would you explain the impact of major changes in young children's weight trajectories?
If I may, I would like to start one step earlier and explain to the audience what an expected weight trajectory is, so then we can discuss the impact of an altered trajectory, if that's okay with you.
That would be wonderful. Thank
All
you.
right, wonderful. So you see, healthcare providers expect children to change their weight over time, following a growth curve reference. If you have children or work with children, you have seen a CDC or a WHO growth curve. They have those many curvy lines that we call percentile bands to show how a child's growth compares to other children of the same sex and age. So an expected weight trajectory means that a child's growth falls within an optimal percentile range and stays within that range. So in other words, a child with an expected weight trajectory should generally stay on the same percentile band or slightly move in a gradual and predictable way from one band to the next. So now to your question, weight trajectories can be majorly affected by potential stressors, getting children to grow slower or faster than expected. The name we give to trajectories of children who grow slower than expected was failure to thrive in the past, and now we call it weight faltering. So weight faltering happens when a child changes from a stable trajectory, so within that percentile band, to a decline over two major percentile bands, meaning crossing downwards over two bands. And in the short term, weight faltering increases the risk for medical complications of acute infections. And in the long term, we see an increase in the risk for short stature, developmental and psychosocial delays, and in adulthood, an increased risk for cardiovascular disease and metabolic syndrome. And on the other end of the growth spectrum, we have rapid weight gain, which is when a child changes from a stable trajectory, so again, within their percentile band, to an increase over two major percentile bands, so crossing upwards over two bands. And rapid weight gain in the first 2 years of life increases later risk for obesity, insulin resistance, cardiovascular disease, and multiple health and psychological problems. So as you can see, both slow and rapid weight gain have major impacts on children's health and well-being.
Thank you so much for that very clear presentation on trajectories, particularly as it relates to children. So my next question, what study design did you use to investigate this specific issue?
Wow, that's a great question. As I was saying before, children's weight trajectories can be majorly affected by potential stressors. And what does that actually mean? These stressors are conditions like family economic hardships, specifically food insecurity, for example, which describes the lack of access to nutritionally adequate and safe foods for a healthy life. So multiple cross-sectional studies have established the association between food insecurity and child adverse health outcomes, but fewer of them and are longitudinal studies, and they have explored this. They haven't explored these relationships. So for this study, we used a subset cohort from the Children's Health Watch Sentinel study composed of children from birth to their second year. And to better understand changes in weight trajectory due to these stressors, only children with a healthy start in life were included in this cohort, which means they were born at term with birth weight between 25 and 4,500 grams and weight for age within the expected limits. And with this cohort, we were able to investigate longitudinally how stressors like household and child food insecurity would change young children's growth trajectory over time.
Thank you. And then my next question relates to the research that you've done. How would you sort of condense things into 3 take-home messages for someone who wants to sort of quickly understand what you've done in your research?
Wow, 3 take-home messages. All right. So I think one, child food insecurity, which is an indicator of the lack of adequate food for children due to financial constraints of the family, was, yes, associated with slow weight gain, severe enough to warrant clinical concern. A second one, tracking child food insecurity in addition to household food insecurity can be an effective strategy to prevent weight faltering and to support optimal child growth. And third, future research should explore longitudinal designs to determine causal relationships that can explain the association between food insecurity and growth faltering in children. But these 3 home messages, I would love, if you allow me, to give a brief explanation of a reason behind these points. Is that okay?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. So, see, caregivers with insufficient financial resources to food tend to shield their children from scarcity by reducing their own food intake. So when caregivers are no longer able to protect their children from hunger, children's growth trajectory is affected. So when we examined child food insecurity separately from household food insecurity, which includes both child and adult experiences with food insecurity, we isolated the risks that restrictions in food quality and quantity have on very young children's growth trajectory, which was hidden when examining household food insecurity alone. So in this sense, when looking holistically at children, it is important to go beyond household food insecurity and ask the child reference questions as well. So the American Academy of Pediatrics currently recommends screening for food insecurity with a validated 2-item tool named Hunger Vital Sign, which my team developed at Children's Health Watch. However, the Hunger Vital Sign screens for household, not child food insecurity, which we believe to be particularly relevant for a holistic understanding of the effects of food insecurity in children. So for an in-depth assessment of both household and child food insecurity, with a less time-sensitive tool than the full 18-question survey, as we understand, obviously, clinical settings are super demanding, we do recommend the abbreviated Child and Adult Food Security Survey, or the ACAFS, which is an abbreviated, sensitive, specific, and valid 8-item food security scale that identifies not only the binary category of food security and insecurity, but also levels of severity, low and very low, for household and child food insecurity. So the ACAFS can be used as a standalone scale or a follow-up scale after households with children screen positive for food insecurity with the Hunger Vital Sign. And also it can inform clinical practice, intervention planning, food policies, and obviously population tracking if that's the case.
Hey, thank you so much. And then I wondered, how might RDNs who are in a practice setting use your research outcomes?
Oh, that's a very interesting question because that comes close to my heart. As a nutritionist dietitian myself, I believe that it is important to pay attention to children's weight classification and do plan for a healthy weight trajectory. But I also believe that it is important to look at children's family social conditions to plan for a successful intervention. So let me go further and explain this. The first thing that this study shows is that accelerated weight loss or gain, independently of weight status, such as underweight, expected weight, or overweight, is a matter of clinical concern and should be treated as such. And the second thing is that this study shows that assessing social conditions is an integral part of planning successful intervention. So when clinical and social concerns are identified, dietitians and nutritionists, as well as clinicians and community health workers, should have an individual clinical plan, and in addition, connect families with system level interventions, such as federal public policy assistance programs. Um, Given that families with low incomes juggle their budgets to pay for basic needs like food, housing, energy, healthcare, childcare, and the list goes on. Connecting food insecurity families to SNAP and WIC are crucial, but not all. It shouldn't be that all. Helping families navigate other benefits will free money for food. So, for example, unrestricted cash transfers, like the child tax credit, have led to improvements in children's health by increasing families' ability to afford sufficient food. Another example is subsidies that support families' ability to afford safe housing have also improved household food security and children's weight. So, in sum, if nutritionists, dietitians ensure that families have adequate resources for basic needs, from a holistic perspective, like housing, healthcare, food, and obviously other necessary services, we can better support children in establishing a healthy growth trajectory.
And then finally, as we look to the future, especially in this area where you're working, what are some important topics that we may be seeing?
I would say that the majority of research uses cross-sectional designs, and it would be interesting to see more longitudinal designs to determine causality when studying food insecurity. And the other thing is the broad implementation of the abbreviated child and adult food security scale, or ACAFS, in studies assessing food insecurity in households with children, because changes in food insecurity levels from more severe to less severe are the gain we want to see in well-designed interventions.
Yes, thank you so very much. And I'm very happy that you brought up the concept of causality and the type of study design that we're going to need to use in order to look at that particular um, area of research. Thank you so much for providing these detailed ideas. And I know that the Academy membership will be very interested in your responses to my question today. And thank you for taking your time to be a part of this podcast.
Thank you so much for the lovely invitation, and I'm happy to, be of service for any questions that arise.